Hello, this is Andrea St. Amand, March 22nd. I'm going to talk today about the power of story and what happens when we are afraid to write our own story and live in the truth of our own story. So, when I was at the law firm, there was a point several years in that I wanted to start writing. I wanted to start writing creatively. I was already writing a lot as a lawyer. I was not the courtroom lawyer, the one up talking. I was writing what those lawyers would say. And I wanted to start writing creatively. I didn't tell anybody. I was scared to death to tell anybody that I wanted to write fiction. And why? I didn't even tell my friends. And why? I have no idea. I think I was so afraid of them thinking I was flaky, like wanting to write fiction, or that I wouldn't be perfect the first thing I wrote. And I was really afraid they would say, well, what are you writing? Even if they didn't think I was crazy, they'd say, what are you writing? And the truth is, I didn't know what I was writing, and would have a hard time saying that. But I love stories with a supernatural element. I love those stories with ghosts or witches or vampires, the stories that have some darkly alluring beauty, the ones that get your imagination going, right? Um, and I don't know why, but I feel like I couldn't say that out loud, especially in a law firm. So what I started writing, I just started writing in snippets. And I would have like a half-baked idea, and I would have some character I created. And slowly things started coming together. And by the end of it, I think I had over 100 separate things added on my desktop. And I eventually put them into a folder that I called Freak Show. And that folder sat over on the edge of my screen, and every time I saw it, I got this delicious little thing, like, ooh, that's my super secret closet over there with all my magic in it. Well, one day I got outed. I was in a deposition, and we did these big, complicated cases with lots of lawyers. And this one particular case was very tense. A lot of lawyers involved. The clients were there. I remember these businessmen on either side of the table kind of glaring at each other. And the court reporter, we couldn't get the Wi-Fi working in that particular conference room for some reason, so I needed the court reporter's something off of her computer. So at the end of the deposition, I gave her my memory stick. Well, guess what was on the memory stick? Yeah, all my writing that I backed up. So she sticks her memory stick into her laptop, and the first thing that shows up is the file, and she goes, Andrea, what's Freak Show? So I'm totally outed in front of 25 lawyers that the first thing I have on my file is something called Freak Show. And I was so embarrassed. I went like 59 million shades of red. Why now? I don't know. That's so stupid. But then I felt like I wasn't being serious. I wasn't going to be taken seriously if they knew what Freak Show actually was. So I think I was very haughty and was like, your business, give me that back. But two really important things came out of that. One, the man I worked for after that in the parking lot was ribbing me. He was like, oh, what's Freak Show? And I was scared to death. He might be thinking it's some sort of circus porn or something. So I said, well, I'm writing. And I explained it to him. So after that, he's like, I think that's great. So after that, I started getting dumped cases on me, real complicated cases where they're like, could you just figure out this story? How are we going to connect to the emotional truth of this story and put it in front of a jury or a judge? Well, they will care about something as dry as accounting fraud or something as complicated as money laundering. So with that little shift of being outed for my writing, things changed at work for me. Certainly not enough, but they did change. And when I really dove into the power of story, I've seen it go both ways. We ended up winning a $360 million verdict in a Bernie Madoff type case that the jury was like crying. They were so happy to give us that verdict, and that was for a bankruptcy trustee. But I've also seen the power of story send men to jail for crimes they did not commit because there was an emotional connection with a story. So the second thing that comes out of knowing the power of story is, how do you apply that knowledge to yourself? How do you take that power and own that power with the stories that you are telling? So I will give you another vignette. I then started writing a novel, and the novel, of course, was going to have a supernatural element to it. And at this point, people did know I was writing on the side, which was translated into about 1 hour every Sunday. so not much was getting done. But I didn't want to tell people the truth about the novel I was writing. And the truth about the novel was that it was based on a murder that took place in my family in 1920 in the mountains of West Virginia. But I come from a family of mediums. And the murder is, really informed by seances and ghosts and all this other fantastical stuff and ceremony and ritual that happens in the mountains of 1920s West Virginia. But I felt like I couldn't say that out loud to people at a law firm. So what I started telling them when they asked me what I was writing, I started telling them, I am writing about a murder that took place in my family in 1920. And then it sounds like I'm writing some serious murder mystery, right? Well, I leave the law firm. I continue to write my novel. And guess what novel I started to write? I really ended up writing the murder mystery that was only about the story of a murder in my family in 1920. So I told that story for so long to so many people, I actually started living it, the story of my novel, which wasn't even true. And I could never figure out the plot or really what would happen with that novel. The novel ended up in a drawer because I wasn't writing the truth of it. But that's a metaphor. That's a powerful, powerful metaphor for what we're doing in our life. When you are writing a novel, it's your creation. There is nothing but nothing standing between you and your creation, you and that blank page. It's just you. You can do whatever you want with it. And instead of writing what I wanted, I started writing what I told everybody I was writing. How many times do we do that in our lives? How many times are we telling people things and we're not saying the right thing? We are saying, I can't be honest, I'm going to tell this story because that person will disapprove of me, or they just won't get it, or I'll hurt their feelings, or we start telling one thing and living another, and eventually we actually start living what we're telling. We get so far away that the story that we've created becomes the life that we start living. That's when the power of story starts sending you to jail instead of getting you $360 million. So that fear of what other people are thinking really prevents us from writing the life we love. But y'all, it gets worse. It actually gets worse than that. It doesn't stop there. We start living a shrinked up version of ourselves. We start living a story that everybody else dictates, and we don't even realize it. We don't even know. We're scared to even create for ourselves our own little super secret freak show folder, our own little secret magical place where no one's going to see but us. We're scared to even go there. We're scared to even think about it. So we're living all day long in the stories that we've created for ourselves. And this goes way deeper than positive thinking. This isn't like, okay, well, let me just start telling a story of like everything's great and make sure whenever I walk around being all super happy. Well, that's the story too. What story is that telling if you're not feeling like everything's great? You're creating then a story of disconnect. Well, now my story is I have to say something but do something else. So if you really think about the words coming out of your mouth and whether they are emotionally connecting, and if they aren't, figure out what story you are telling, what story you are actually living, because the power of story is phenomenally tremendous, and it goes both ways. $360 million verdict or sending an innocent man to jail for something he didn't do. And that's what we do to ourselves all day long. So it's also not about positive thinking, but it's not about complaining either. It's about really getting real. And I know when you get real, you start thinking what's coming out, what story am I buying into, what story am I believing? I know when you really get real, it gets scary because things start getting messy fast. You get confused, you get overwhelmed. That's when you reach out. You reach out when you don't even know how to start creating your own personal freak show folder like I had. Reach out. Don't struggle with it by yourself. If you're sick and tired of worrying what other people are going to think about you, or they'll think you're crazy, or they'll disapprove you or judge you, if you start living a different story, or just start writing a different story, or start thinking about writing a different story for yourself, reach out. Don't do this by yourself. This is what I've become an expert with. There is no way you are going to have a positive impact on yourself, on your family, on your loved ones on this planet unless you are down and dirty and real and telling your real story. So, I have lots of folks on here today, which is so awesome. Does anybody have any questions? Kyle Ann, yes. Oh, your word is your wand. Why can't I remember that? Well, we're here to support you and hold you accountable, Kyle Ann. Yeah, your word is your wand. And this Kyle Ann is a writer, so she knows better than anybody. Anybody else have any questions? I'll give you guys just a few more seconds. Thank you so much for joining. And yeah, have a great day. Pay attention to those stories, my friends. Bye.